Drinks Coach. Yes, it's me, Joe Wadsack, again. Hit subscribe, hit the bell for next episodes as they come up. Yes, you're watching the Drinks Coach UK TV on YouTube. Subscribers are coming in. That's very, very kind of you all. Please continue. It's exciting how the channel's growing this time round. For those people that haven't seen it for a little while, I did do a very long series during lockdown. Did 152 something shows. And this is series 2 after a year out. So what have I been doing? Well, I've been showing, hopefully, the enthusiastic amateur out there where I think the best picks are this Christmas from various different retailers all over the country. Please contact me on @VineSack if you've got anything to ask me, and even @DrinksCoachUK, all lowercase, if it's specific to do with this channel. I'm very proud to have had over 3,500 hits last week, which was great. Things are really growing at a pace. Now, I did ask, I think in the chaos, the new people who are responsible for the PR at the Marks and Spencer's wine department to send me some samples, and I had a very kind message from the chap in charge recently who said he's very sorry, it's been crazy busy, there's been a lot of changes in the way they do PR there, the people that did it forever are no longer doing it. So I wasn't invited to the press tasting. I think that was an accident and they apologised, but also he very kindly chucked me 4 bottles of wine to try and said, listen, here's some wines from a list that I think that you have been recommended. So I thought I'd just do them online. Rather than saying these are the 4 wines I picked out of their entire range, I don't know. But I thought it'd be more exciting to taste them with you, real time, have a little chat about them, say what I think about the wines, and let's leave it at that. I think at least then you've got some content from Marks and Spencer's, if that's the only shop you can get to before Christmas. We're starting off with this. This is a Spanish red. It's an organic Garnacha, Garnacha being the world's most widely planted red grape variety, also known as Grenache in France and Canonau in Sardinia and many other things. This is from the discreet, not very large and lesser known region of Uclès. Uclès is a small district right high up on the central plateau of Spain in La Mancha and Castile. Castilla-La Mancha is the region, the larger region. And it's very close to Madrid, actually. Is it southeast of Madrid? Pretty sure it is, around that area. But dead centre in Spanish terms. So what does that mean? 2 or 3 things. Number 1, it means that it's very high altitude. It means number 2, it's very continental, which means it's very far away from the maritime influence of the sea. Because the sea is made of water, and water has such a high, what we call specific heat capacity, ability to store heat, it slows down heat exchange. So if you've got vineyards by the sea, I've said this many times, but I'm just reiterating it, then the temperature doesn't vary very much. It'll probably be in the middle of summer, 25 degrees in the day and like 18 degrees or 19 degrees at night. Where if you go further inland, where you get huge heat exposure, but then all that heat goes away in the evening, it might be as much as 35, 40 degrees in the day and as little as 15 or even 13 degrees at night. And it feels like, proper freezing weather. So this is the latter, not the former. Grenache vineyards around Madrid have proven to be very, very exciting indeed and produce a slightly different style of straight Grenache than the ones that we're familiar with. They tend to have a beautifully pure fruit, lovely acidity because it gets cool at night, it protects that, but also lovely purity and herby ripeness in the wines. And they don't necessarily have to be high in alcohol particularly, although I think this one probably is. No, it's not. It's only 12.5%. As I predicted. This is 2022 vintage. Let's see what it looks like. I should look this up for price, shouldn't I? Let's do that while we're talking. Okay, that's why I've got the iPad here, so we can do this real time. Okay, so Marks and Spencer's. Uclès. So it comes up. Yes, it has. Oh, right, actually, it's come up in American dollars on Vivino. I apologise for that. Won't give you a rough idea, but it's under a tenner, judging by this, looking at it. But you've got the colour of Grenache quite clearly here, and Grenache isn't a dark wine. There are a few exceptions. There's a clone of Grenache that's grown up on the windy hills of the Pyrenees for many, many years, and because it's been lashed with wind and windburn, the skins have got thicker to protect the fruit and the seeds inside. So you end up with much thicker, darker skins and less juice, therefore a darker wine. It's called Garnacha peluda, which means hairy Grenache, because the vines appear to have these silica hairs, these white hairs on the leaves. And that's not what we've got here. This is, I think this is classic Garnacha. Wow. That's actually extremely pretty. Nice choice, chap. While I'm on here, I can remember his name. Give him credit where credit's due. Where are we here? His name was David Park. Hello, David. Thank you very much for sending these wines to me. Really appreciate it. This has kind of got everything that I want on a party red written all over it. It's pale in colour. It's not stupid high in alcohol. It's got a lovely pure fruit. Grenache, don't mind saying it. And this is a price point incredibly one-dimensional. It doesn't have much complexity, but you don't need that. If you've got lots of different food and you've got like mince pies and, no, not mince pies, pork pies and leftovers and bubble and squeak and roast turkey and cold cuts and things like that, you want a lovely, delicious wine that doesn't clash with all of that. I can't think of a better sort of plonky red to have in the cupboard for emergencies than this kind of thing, really. Not hugely concentrated. Again, that means that it applies to a certain application much better. It's not trying to be the head of Mensa, this wine, but it is a very good wine, and it's a very obvious wine to buy in the shop. Organic, Marks and Spencer's Garnacha. Yours for what appears to be where it says $12.50. So I'm guessing that's going to be around £9 or something, which sounds like great value in this climate. Well done. Thanks very much, David, for that. So that's a very, very good plonk. I mean, we're looking at a list of quaffable reds, you know, for just smashing over the festive period. We can go back to my show about Sainsbury, where there was a £7 Malbec, which is very smashable. And I think this goes along the lines of being sub £10, easy drinking, no complaints, and everyone will like it. Even people who don't like red wine very much, I think will find that a pleasure, because there's no tannin really to speak of, just the tiniest bit of grip around the lips, nothing special. Anyway, moving on to something maybe a bit more festive, a bit more serious, a bit more Christmas. We have Chateau Diligente, Chateau La Diligente. This is a fancy looking bottle of claret. Marks and Spencer's have always been very good at picking sort of mid-priced but premium fine wines from Bordeaux. And this is from the lesser known satellite of Saint-Emilion. Saint-Emilion being the famous wine region to the east of Bordeaux. Around Saint-Emilion, there's 2 or 3 satellite regions which kind of feed off the name. But you've got Saint-Emilion Grand Cru Classé right in the middle, type A, and then you've got about 72 other Grand Crus around it. But then you've got these things, Saint-Georges Saint-Emilion, Montagne Saint-Emilion, and Puisseguin Saint-Emilion. And this is Puisseguin Saint-Emilion. I'm not sure if it's fair to say it, Puisseguin Saint-Emilion probably is the lamest of the 3. It's there's quite a lot of light wine there. I wouldn't say they're not all bad wines. There's 1 or 2 very good ones. However, now Diligente is a bit of a guiding light in that region. These wines are Merlot dominant. They spend 15% of their time in oak to make a very serious Saint-Emilion alternative. Well, you know, Puisseguin Saint-Emilion is still in the title. I think this is a wine that shows some promise. 2021 was a coolish vintage, but that's fine because it was certainly ripe enough to ripen Merlot in what we know as the right bank, which is Saint-Emilion, Côte de Castillon, Pomerol, and all the other satellites that go with it. Let's see if we can find a price for this, shall we? Chateau La Diligente, M&S. Yeah, I've got it here in the roundup from Decanter. So, oh, look at that, Decanter liked it too. So let's see if I agree with everyone. 80% Merlot, 10% Cab Franc, probably got a bit of Malbec in there as well, if I know Puisseguin, or it could be Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc. Anyway, so Cabernet Sauvignon, lovely colour. Merlot, as I was reminded in the quiz the other day, named after La Merle. La Merle is French for blackbird. It was known back in the day for being the wine with the deepest colour, but now we know how to extract wines and we know what we're doing with them. It isn't always the deepest coloured wine, but it's certainly deeper in colour than the Grenache we just had. Let's see if we can get a price off this. Come on. Annoyingly. Doesn't have a price on here, but I shall get one for you. Bear with me. Oh, it smells delicious. Oh, wow. That's really perfectly ripe Merlot. It's not underripe. It's not herbal. Been watching too many American Christmas films. There is a fucking H in herb, so please pronounce it in the future. It's wonderful. It's got a deep, slightly spearminty quality, which is not uncommon, I think, in Merlot. Very dried thyme, maybe even lemon thyme. It's a bit more lifted than that. It's not quite so earthy. Almost crunchy fruit on the palate. The wood does not dominate in any way. Gosh. Well, the price is going to be in the description, as I always do, below. I said, do have a look after this. If you're watching on telly, then look at it on your computer or your iPad or something, and I'll have the details, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a hot link directly to where you can buy it. But it's almost the last shopping day before Christmas, but you can still probably go and get this fella. But I think that's absolutely delicious. Okay, so far so good. David, you've done right by me. You sent me 2 red wines, and they're both absolutely spot on. Perfect Christmas drinks, that's what I'm saying, and the kind of wines that you could almost put in a hamper, one for smashing and one for having with some roast lamb or roast goose or something like that. Would be very, very good roast goose. Not so sure about the turkey, but I don't think it really matters, does it? Does it matter that much that we have exactly the right wine with the right food? If you've got a wine you've been saving up all year, flip and open it. It'll go with one of the cheeses anyway. There we go. Cheers. Rocking through these. Now we're going on to one of 2 fizzes I've been sent. This is the Rhona Brut Rosé from Graham Beck Wines. Graham Beck is in Robertson. Not particularly picturesque, but extremely good wine region in the winelands of South Africa. If you drive up to St Harry Pass and go through a tunnel, you kind of almost come into a different world. Not quite so exotic and maybe as glamorously looking as Stellenbosch. Robertson is a high altitude plain where they grow Chardonnay extremely successfully, along with other things. And this is made by the guy that's probably made more premium, what they call Cap Classique in South Africa, which is champagne style fizz, than any other guy alive. His name was Peter Ferreira. Great hero of mine. Also, I would count him as a good friend. And Graham Beck's been his baby for years, and he has a very fine wine there called, doesn't sound great in English, but it's called the Clive. And it's largely seen as the benchmark sparkling wine in the whole of South Africa. There are probably some very small, crafted, handmade examples which would disagree with that. But in terms of any sort of reasonable volume or size, in terms of seeing them on first class on airlines or in posh restaurants and hotels, the Clive from Graham Beck is kind of like the daddy. So here we have the Rhona, which is, I'm guessing, kind of half Chardonnay, half Pinot Noir. I mean, it would be weird if it wasn't. It's got a lovely pale, literally salmon pink colour to it, which is nice. If you want to know what salmon pink is, that's salmon pink. Okay. What's lovely about it is, and I imagine this is through ripeness, through lack of anything else, it's not that sharp. It's very soft and gentle. It's very warm and fuzzy and full of fruit around the lips. It's got some complexity, but it's a very, very attractive wine in its own right. It feels very wintry. Like, again, going back to the Sainsbury's show, the first one, there's a Crémant d'Alsace, which actually has a remarkably high level of sugar. I think it was about 20 grams, which I couldn't believe. But it's a wine that almost tastes dry and has this warm, cuddly feeling about it. And it's creamy and nutty and moussey. And I think that's what it's all about, really. I'm going to see if I can find any more information about this. The Rhona Brut Rosé. Going about the Rhona Brut Rosé. There we go. Well, you've got to mind accolade the International Wine Challenge, which is nice, but I still can't find prices for any of these things. Sorry I can't give you an equivalent price, but there we go. This is going to be under 20 quid, I'm sure. Let's call it, I'm guessing, let's call it 16 quid, shall we? Because that's kind of where Cap Classique is, and is now providing some of the best value sparkling wine in the world. South Africa, finally, because they've broken through and people are starting to accept sparkling wine from there, actually started this whole process back in 1971 when Simonsich produced out a wine called Capsafonkel, Cape Sparkling. So they've been at it for over half a century now, so we should give them credit, shouldn't we? Start looking at South African sparkling wine as an option. Certainly the value wines from France, Crémant d'Alsace, Crémant de Limoux, Crémant de Noir, take some beating, but if you want something a little bit more exotic, a little riper, and maybe more suitable for your salmon canapes, then this would be the perfect choice. Well, we've had 2 or 3 real standout sparklings this year. In terms of champagne, the 2 that I keep on going back to are from Adnams of Southwold. Adnams Brut, made by H. Blin, B-L-I-N, which is largely made from Pinot Meunier, or Meunier, the third variety, so-called third variety of champagne, was utterly delicious and just so nice and lifted and easy to drink. And the other wine, which really blew me away, was as good as anything that I tasted, vintage or otherwise, was Waitrose Blanc de Noir from Alexandre Bonnet, a producer they've been buying wine from for literally decades, certainly from before I was buying wine there, and that was over 25 years ago. So absolutely fantastic wine, and at 26 or 27 pounds, almost impossible to beat. Then I saw that Mr. David Parker sent me a bottle of this, and they used to do an awful lot of wine, a lot of work with Marks and Spencer's through Sue Daniels, their chief tech. This is 12.5% alcohol. It's non-vintage, and it's from the cooperative of de Saint-Gall, from Saint-Gall, Saint-Gall, G-A-L-L. Never knew who Saint-Gall was. Maybe Welsh, Gallois, I don't know. But I remember a wine, one of the first really great champagnes I ever drank was Cuvée Orpal, which is their top wine, 1995 from Saint-Gall, which was even then £50 in Marks and Spencer's. And I remember thinking what an incredible wine it was, but you can buy anything 50 quid in those days. That would probably sort of superannuate up to over £100 now. These wines are brought in, I think, by Daniel Lambert Wines in Wales, he now lives in France, actually. But fantastic cooperative, making fantastic wines. They have a very knowledgeable brand ambassador that travels around showing the wines as well. So I'm hopeful. Should we call it that? Hopeful this wine's going to be rather good. I don't think I've ever had a bad Saint-Gall wine, but it's right up there with the famous brands, you know, Taittinger, Bollinger, Moet, all those wines. It is wonderfully consistent. The packaging is very stylish, looks the part. I think they tend to lean towards specialising in Chardonnay more than Pinot Noir, which is unusual. Ooh, very creamy and cool. Lovely gunflint biscuitiness. It's not just digestive biscuits, which is Pinot Noir tends in a wine, in a champagne style wine, to offer flavours of buttery biscuit base, like cheesecake base, digestives and things like that. Chardonnay dominant wines tend not to. They tend to be a bit more smoky, a bit more like the smell of flints being struck. So a light whiff of bonfire off the barbecue. Gosh. There's a whole lot of rosé going on. Loads of flavour. The flavour develops very, very quickly on the palate. It's very, very complex. It starts off like lemony light. Then you go through sort of a brioche, almost lemon meringue layer. And then you end up with these beautiful red fruits, these lovely strawberry fruits, which is the kind of structure you'd expect from a wine that's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, because you start off with the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir kind of builds in volume as the Chardonnay fades. This is really lovely stuff. Saint-Gall Brut. £34. There you go. You're paying an extra £7 or £8 over the wines that I have recommended, but this wine certainly tastes like it. This is a champagne at a price which I think is perfectly fair. You're looking, remember, still at a full 10, if not more pounds cheaper than your Lancels and your Moets of this world. So, well, what can I say? I mean, Mr. Park could have sent me all sorts of different dodgy wines, but he's clearly picked 4 wines which I think are absolutely benchmarking their price points in their categories. I'll get the actual prices on the sheets below, but that's it. 4 wines from Marks and Spencer's, a lovely light red, sorry for no whites, a really decent claret. There's plenty of claret swimming around. If you look at my other shows, please look at the others and have fun. I hope you enjoy the content. And then we've got a rosé from South Africa, which I'm sure is considerably less than £20, probably more like the £15 mark. And then we've got about £34 champagne. What can I say? See you next time. What am I going to do next time? It's either going to be Rioja or it's going to be me sweeping out the cupboard of no and low and stuff. But I'll see you next time.